I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm gonna do it a different way. But thank you. I don't think you really want to work with me and be married to me.
Welcome to the Financial Innovations Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Villani. We're helping CFOs save money and time by investing in cutting-edge technology. Today, I'm really excited to have Paris and James Williams on the show. Paris and James, it's exciting to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So today is very exciting because we have a husband and wife duo team over here, which is great. I was telling everyone before the show over here that if you asked my wife what I did, she couldn't tell you. She said, "Oh, I think he does something in technology. Maybe he works with finance people, but outside of that, So it's always great to, when you have a team over there where you guys can be able to articulate what you guys are doing. How is that dynamic?
Yeah.
Well, James absolutely loves working with me. It's the best thing that ever happened to him. And I literally really do think it's good for both of us, but I never thought we would have worked together. I had a career as a teacher, a school teacher. I started teaching third grade and taught several different grade levels in K through 12. And then I was a school leader. And around the time of COVID, when everybody was looking at their lives and evaluating, what do I really want to do? I was thinking, okay, I think my season is up in education. And James had invited me to come support in this business, which was really part-time at the time. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm going to try I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm going to do it a different way. But thank you. I don't think you really want to work with me and be married to me. But we moved to Georgia. What was it? 2022. Around the time we moved to Georgia, I rethought it. I had tried some different things and decided to come in and work full time with James, and that's how we got started. And it was so surprising, actually, to me that I tell people what makes our marriage work also really works in our business. Like the fact that we're so different, that we're opposites, that we have different gifts, strengths, abilities, we're drawn to different things, that actually really works for our business and in our marriage. So,
Yeah, no, that's great. James, anything you want to add over there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, she pretty much covered it. I think it's also not only that we're different, but I think we have a good appreciation for what each other brings to the table. I can't do what she does, and and she doesn't do, and nor does she want to do what I do. So just having that appreciation for the value that we both bring to it just has made it work. And there are times when I think for both of us, where we're like, why are you doing that? And and for me, like if it's in her lane, then she does, a lot of our promotion and marketing, and she makes connections and builds partnerships. She's doing some things that I wouldn't do, but I had to realize, well, I'm not really that good at that anyway, so I should just probably let her go ahead and do it, even though I don't think it's the right thing to do. So having that appreciation, and then I think also the awareness and discipline just to kind of just step back, even if your skin is crawling on something that is being proposed or recommended.
Yeah, no, it's great. And, I know that, you guys, we'll talk a little bit about what you do here in a second, just, providing fractional CFO services. I feel like, and I've been in this business probably 15 years now. And, I feel like the whole concept of a fractional CFO is a fairly recent, thing where, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about, how it came about, maybe what you do for your customers and, why someone would need a fractional CFO.
Yeah. So the way it came about, and there wasn't this idea of, oh, I want to be a fractional CFO. Like, that wasn't where it came from. But where it came is I always had people that would come and ask me questions about financial information related to their business or their personal, because they knew I was in accounting and they knew I was in finance. And so, I had some experience with that. And so it kind of got to the point where I had some like real serious requests where I had people ask like, yeah, I really need your help. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can help you. And so I would help them out. And then they would be like, no, I really, I'll actually pay you. And I'm like, you don't have to pay me. It's not a problem. I love doing I love helping with this kind of thing. It's really interesting to me. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. So it didn't feel like it was something that, that I wanted to charge someone for, because I was enjoying it and I wanted to help some friends out. When one of the folks came to me and asked, can I help them? And they would pay me for it, and I turned it down. I either made a mistake or didn't make a mistake of going home and telling Paris that, they were going to pay me for that. And, and I was like, I just turned it down. I said, no. And then she said, we don't work for free. Okay. So.
No, that's my rule. That's my rule. You
and
think
I laugh as you say that, because that's kind of how it started out with me too, where it's, like, I just love doing stuff. Someone said, oh, it would be great if we had a piece of software that did X, Y, and Z. And I said, oh, I'm just going to go and, work nights and weekends and build it just for the love of building this product. And, I gave it away. I was like, all right, you can use it whatever you want. Right. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm not really making any money off of this, but, I am loving, figuring it out. It's why I do what I do. But at the same time, you're leaving a big opportunity on the table.
Big opportunity. And for me, I wasn't seeing it in that way. And it took Paris to say, no, go ahead, turn around, go back and say, yes, I will work for money. So it started sort of like that, and kind of a side thing, and helping people out, and then and it just really evolved. And when Paris, she jumped in, we saw the opportunity. And we said that, okay, we're going to really do this and, make this a real business. And it's been great. It's been really good. And the reason why someone would need someone like us is because they have, growing business. And, our sort of target is companies that are above the $2 million range in revenue. And about that point, things start getting a little bit more complex. A little bit. There's more balls in the air. The business owner doesn't have as much time, attention, or maybe even expertise to really sort of manage the sort of financial aspects of the business. And this is where there's typically already an accountant or a bookkeeper that's working. Whether it's outsourced or whether it's an internal person that's doing the bookkeeping for the business, and they're a bookkeeper or an accountant, and the role of a bookkeeper or an accountant is to make sure that the numbers are right and that things are classified appropriately. You've got some financial statements, but that role doesn't necessitate financial strategy, financial forecasting, financial planning. How do we grow the business? How do we make it more valuable? Those are the things that we're working with our clients on. And so when it comes to a point where, there's more needed than just bookkeeping or financial reporting. That's where it's helpful for us, and that's what the space that we serve in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, it's a big reason why I started this show. And what gets me excited about doing it is, just being able to work with and speak to people that, range in who they serve, right? So, we've talked to some big companies here. We've talked to some small companies. We've talked to consultants. We've talked to fractional CFOs over here. And, just to get a sense of, we just passed, a big milestone just in terms of our viewership, where we got, 10,000 views last month. And,
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and we've recognized that, hey, it's not just the Fortune 500 that are tuning into this show. It's, various organizations of all sizes, finance professionals, I can't think of any reason why a non-finance professional would tune into this, but, maybe some people will get enjoyment from it. But, but it's great to see where, we've had some really smart people come on and talk through, hey, what technology you need at different phases. But, to have people like yourselves come on and say, all right, here's kind of the sweet spot of, when you might want a fractional CFO. Here's when you want to start thinking about, really taking your growth to the next level. And it sounds like, based on what you're saying, it's, once you kind of hit that $2 million mark, you're out of the, let's just survive mode as a business. And, let's be a little bit more strategic about how we grow, maybe what we take on, what we don't, and start thinking about, having a formalized process in terms of, my budgeting, my forecasting, not just the, I'm reporting what happened, but, here's real reports that come out that are not just, the canned stuff that comes out of, what systems that you're using. Does that sound like I summed it up?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's hitting a different level, growth level in the business, and where there's a real desire to grow also, right? Because our target isn't folks that are kind of happy with just where they are, but it's like we really want to grow this business. We want to serve more customers, and we want to really sort of establish this business as a real benefit and as a real force. So those are the people that we like to work with. We want to work with people that really have a passion and a purpose for what they're doing, and with that comes that there's challenges there, right? Because when you're seeking to grow, it's more than just surviving. It's about, okay, let's thoughtfully create financial plans, et cetera, in order to do the things that are necessary that are going to help this business to scale. So that's where it starts to come outside of the realm of a just traditional accountant or a bookkeeper. Mm-hmm.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And, I know that there are a lot of companies out there that say, how do I know if I'm ready for this? We don't quite have set processes in place, and a big term I always hear from the smaller companies is, if only we were bigger and we had more budget, we'd have all the processes and everything in place to get this right. And the more I see large companies, the more I see that, here are people who have big budgets that still don't have the processes right, and, still aren't, doing the things that they should be doing over there, which part of me is happy, because I wouldn't have a job if if everyone was doing everything right over there. But the other part of it is, trying to, kind of break that misconception of, there's a barrier before I can go and say, hey, let me, give James and Paris a call over here that we need some help. Where should somebody be before they start to say, all right, I think a fractional CFO is right for me. We talked a little bit about that 2 million in range, but should they have certain processes in place? Is it something where if they don't have the processes in place, you say not to worry, we'll go in there and implement it, where should they be?
Yeah. There should be, as I mentioned before, like they should be a good accountant or bookkeeper that they have in place. That's the foundation for everything, because we can't do our job well if we don't have good numbers, if we don't have good data. So that's really where it all starts, and then we can work with the business in order to build in other important processes. For example, in our offering, we have processes around forecasting, around budgeting, around business development pipeline, and pricing. So we can bring some of those financial disciplines into the business with our system, the way we work and operate. But we absolutely need to have good numbers in order to be able to execute on those things. So I think that's really key. There's got to be something in place, and for us, when there's an issue or there's not either an accountant or bookkeeper that the business owner is happy with, we have partners that we can refer in that can come in and help us and help them in order to get things cleaned up and get going on a good track. So that's key, and it is helpful also for there to be a team, and we find again where they're at that 2 million is probably like our minimum. It is our minimum. But having other people in place, people who are, whether it's a number two and it's some, marketing person, some operations people, because when we meet with our teams, we're meeting with them as a team. And so we're in our role, we're the finance partner. And then there's the owner or CEO, and then there's a salesperson, and there's a marketing and operations person. So when there is, a team of people in place, it works much better, because we're able to leverage. And a lot of times we're kind of the missing link to, our function. Our role is the missing link to that team.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add that I think there's a lot of shame around business owners who've gotten to a certain level who should have things in place and they don't. And like you said, Daniel, I think a lot of times we end up being like, listen, okay, like in the first couple meetings, they're like, oh, we've got this going on and you won't believe it. There's this. And we would believe it because, once you've seen all the different business owners, and we work with a lot of visionaries, right? And so if this is not their inclination toward finance, then it can end up, not being a mess, but yeah, being a complete mess. And that's okay. It's part of our role is to come in and to support with that. And so I think part of it is kind of putting aside the shame and having a growth mindset about the business of like, oh, I should have done this 3 years ago, but I'm just now doing it. And our mindset is, but you're bringing it to the table now. You're making it important now. So let's move forward. And I think that it's, again, kind of some of the visionary personality types are like, yeah, let's go. Like, we're going to grow. We're going to scale. We're going to double down. And James really brings a level of discipline and steadiness that a lot of the scaling and growing business owners don't necessarily have yet. So like he said, it's the missing piece.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points, because there's that element of, hey, I'm not ready yet. I don't have this. And it's, they always say, right, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? But the next best time is today to go and do it. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of, okay, I'm not set up for this, so let me wait till I get set up before I have a finance function in my company, or before I bring this technology in, or whatever. And while there are some pieces that you need to have figured out before you go, you can't just go and throw an ERP in the business without knowing what it is that you're going to be tracking and all of that. But you also can't. There's a time limit to how you can do your transactions in Excel, and on pieces of paper and napkins, and and all of that stuff there as well. So it's you don't need to be fully figured out. You can't necessarily be, we put zero thought into it. But that's where you guys come in, where if somebody says, well, I know I need some kind of a financial system, because of course my sales guy is going to say we're going to double in size tomorrow, and we're just one customer away from quadrupling our business and acquiring 50 more businesses, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the aspect of, you're not going to get there unless you have a plan on how to get there, right? And that's where you guys come into play of, let's come up with that plan. Let's put it on paper. Let's go and make sure that it's something that makes sense and is achievable, and that we're not going and hiring 50 people tomorrow because somebody said we're going to double in size. That we're actually planning around our growth, incorporating that with our strategy, and getting all of that in place. And it sounds like you guys do a lot of that, setting up the processes, not just hey, I'm going to write some reports for you and tell you how you're doing. But if you're someone that doesn't have processes in place, that you guys can get them in place. And if your accountant's cooking the books, you guys have the people that can fix that before you guys come in at that point. But it sounds like you've got a great partner network out there where really it's any kind of need that somebody has, can be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And when just to your point, I mean, you described it very well. Um, so one of the things that we do is we meet with our clients on revenue, and you can kind of imagine the scene. You have salespeople, marketing people, operation people, and we're talking about what's coming down the pipe, and we're looking at the pipeline, and so we're our perspective is it's got to be here in the pipeline in order for us to really see or foresee a way in which it translates then into sales. And so it brings a level of discipline, because to your point, we can't just believe that we're going to double in sales, or we only did $5 million last year, but we're going to do 15 million this year. Okay. How is that going to happen? If it's going to happen, that's great. But we just need to be able to see it, and then to your point, make a plan to set ourselves up. So it's I mean, like I said, for me, it's really good. It's fun. We are, we're playing our role, and everyone else on the team is playing theirs, and through that sort of dynamic interaction and that sort of at times tension, we're hopefully coming up with a good result, the best result for the business, for the company, in order to move it forward in a healthy way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Is there anything in particular, like a customer that is at the 2 million revenue range that says, hey, look, we're ready for this? Are they usually in a spot where they have a decent size ERP? Do you guys go in and recommend hey, here's what you guys should be on, or a type of system you should be on before we go and build out the rest of the processes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for most of the clients in the range that we work with, and that is typically 2 to 20 million in revenue. Most of the business models are simple enough where QuickBooks or Xero, Sage, those are sufficient. And we do have, clients that require more of like the NetSuite type of model, because there are a lot of different moving parts. There's supply chain, there's all those different things that are in place. But the lion's share of those businesses that we work with can function with something a little bit more straightforward and more simple, just because of the business model. The business models aren't that difficult.
Right, makes sense. Are there any common like themes or anything that you run into? You go into a customer for the first time, and in terms of general recommendations that that you have. I know a lot of it's going to depend on the industry, the situation a particular client is in, but do you see any kind of recurring themes of this is something that if a client knows this going in, that makes everything easier, or the game changer, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it is, some of it is just regular. Is just kind of the basic blocking, tackling, and what I mean by that is having projections, having forecasts, so that so the business owners and businesses are able to really make informed decisions. What we do with our clients is we update our forecasts on a monthly basis, so once a month. And so we're looking at the drivers of the business, and if there are changes in those underlying drivers, if there's changes in the environment, the economic environment, then we're making adjustments for those. And that is, something that that business owners, entrepreneurs, and at least specifically, not only in our range, because I know I've worked a lot with a lot larger businesses, but are not doing on a consistent basis. And if you're not doing forecasting consistently, then chances are you're going to run into a wall somewhere, right? So that's a big thing, and so that's one of my biggest recommendations. Whether you use a fractional CFO or CFO, you need to be looking into the future. You need to be consistently looking into the what if sort of scenario, in order to sort of help to guide the business in a more strategic way. So that's a big challenge, but one that you can that can be overcome. And then cash flow, short-term liquidity, cash flow management. Whether it's ensuring that you're staying, business owners are staying on top of their accounts receivable, building in terms, like really negotiating and fighting for terms that are more reasonable. And it's different with different business models, in terms of the typical sort of industry standards. But regardless, the more you can kind of, fight and win some of those battles on really negotiating better terms so that you can get paid faster, the better, right? Because I mean, that's where it's all. I mean, it starts and ends with cash. And if you don't have enough of it, if you don't have enough of it, then it's going to be a problem.
And if you're not matching up the cash going out with the cash coming in, so if people are paying you on 90-day terms and you're paying your bills on 30-day terms, obviously you're going to be at a big disadvantage there in terms of that.
But it's a challenge, and payroll comes around every 2 weeks,
right? Right.
So that doesn't stop.
Right. And, it's funny because it depends on who you talk to, but, a lot of people, get hounded with LinkedIn messages every day of, hey, you need this piece of technology to save your business. You need dashboarding. You need AI. You need this. You need that, right? But a lot of the things that we're talking about here are, let's make sure that we get the fundamentals down, because it doesn't matter whether your numbers are being presented to you on a dashboard or a robot's giving it to you and all of that, right? There are certain things that are universal and truly fundamental to the business that, if you don't have these things done right, it doesn't matter, if you can click on something and drill into it or not. You're not setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. Before I really dove into the smaller business space, and I worked for larger corporate businesses. I heard this guy said something to the effect of, corporate people, or these people that have MBAs and all these finance degrees, they don't understand business finances. And I was like, what? What do you mean by that? I took offense to that. It's like, you're talking about me. Because a lot of times, and when I started my career, I started at a big accounting firm, and I worked on mostly large clients. I had a few small ones, but when you're working on these large businesses, I mean, there's just so much. There's so much. One, room for error that you can have, but also you can get lost in the details of things that don't really matter as much. And so it really is about the fundamentals. And it's, I love spreadsheets. I still use them. And, but if you're very much spreadsheet oriented or dashboard oriented, and you're not really kind of understanding what the drivers are and what really counts and what really matters, then you can drive right off of a cliff, with your nice spreadsheet and your nice dashboard, right? So it is really about the fundamentals that really count.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know you mentioned that, you primarily work with companies 2 million to around 20. Is that usually just because at 20 million, that's where companies are starting to look at, let's get our own dedicated CFO, or is there, something else that typically happens at that range?
Yeah, so if you think about it, so if you just sort of break it down into kind of the different segments of small business, so you've got, your startup and your very small micro businesses. For the most part, if they have, just having a bookkeeper or keeping their own kind of QuickBooks going is pretty much sufficient. When you move beyond that stage and you move into kind of that level where we're starting, like in the 7-figure revenue range, 2 million and up, then things start to become a little bit more complex, and it's more busy, and you've got responsibilities, you've got other people that you're dealing with, and you've got you have those different dynamics that are going on. So between, call it R2 million and, really maybe up to 30 or 40 million is a space that has been relatively underserved from a financial planning perspective historically, right? Because the fractional CFO really, in terms of the way it operates now, really wasn't a common thing really up until probably like 5 to 10 years ago at the most. So there were all these businesses in that range that were underserved. There wasn't the ability to necessarily have the resources to bring on a full-time CFO, right? Or someone with that level of experience. So to your point, once we get above 30, 40 million, the resources become more available to invest in. And even if it's not a CFO, there's more talent that you're able to bring in that has background, education, those kinds of things. So you're absolutely right. It's our range between 2 and 30 or 40 million, call it, um, typically doesn't have, the resources to bring on someone full time to do the kind of work. So that's the primary reason why we're in this space.
Yeah. Now I know with, typically when you're at that cusp of getting a CFO, someone that's just a dedicated CFO versus a fractional one, it can be hard to find, talent that, somebody with experience, because, obviously your ability to pay top dollar for the best CFO, out there, isn't as great as somebody that's a $1 billion company, multi-billion dollar company, call it. So now I know that you guys offer some training as well. But what do you recommend is like, what's the best way for somebody that's, maybe an aspiring CFO or maybe a CFO that's newer in their role to, being able to have the skills required in order to be able to do the job, maybe improve their skills to, be able to excel at that CFO type of role?
Yeah, I think at the CFO level, well, one, I guess there's really kind of, generally speaking, there's sort of two routes to the CFO. One traditionally is the accounting route. I mean, like you've been an accountant and you worked in the accounting space, maybe for a CPA firm for a long time. So with that group, it's important to sort of transition from being really sort of, numbers focused in terms of, we need to make sure that everything is like exactly right, and begin to develop a comfort level with the unknown. Yeah, I'll give you an example. So like I worked with accountants that they're like the details have to be, everything has to be in place. Like it's got to be right or it's going to make them nervous. Right? They're going to they're going to, it's going to be really difficult for them. Um, and when in the sort of growth point in the transition is that you just have to be comfortable with not knowing, because the CFO is one, has to understand accounting and wants the numbers to be correct. But the CFO sort of lives in the land of looking into the future and helping the business looking into the future. And it's imprecise, right? You just, and so part of it is just being comfortable with the imprecise nature of being a CFO and learning how to use data and wisdom and also communication from other groups in order to bring to really bring that good value that a CFO should bring. And so that's on the one hand. The other sort of route is you're a finance person. Maybe you're coming from an investment perspective, investment banking, etc. And those folks are normally sort of pretty comfortable with risk, and also comfortable with just not projections and not having the same level of certainty. And that group. It's probably it's more important for them to kind of understand the accounting, sort of basics. I mean, you don't have to go so deep and so detailed, but understanding the accounting basics and how accounting works is important there in order to make sure that those educated guesses that you're making have some level of foundation and reason to them. But ultimately, so those are kind of the two, kind of call it main paths. But ultimately, the CFO, the role of the CFO is a capital allocator, right? So the goal is to be able to efficiently allocate capital into the organization in order to give further leverage, right, for growth. And focusing on value, building value is a top job. So how can we create more value in the business? So focusing there is really important. So it's not focusing on the numbers. It's focusing on value. How do we develop value? How do we help the business grow? Taking all the information that we have, and becoming a real partner to the CEO and the rest of the management team.
Right. And one of my big takeaways from this is, I implement a lot of financial systems, and sometimes we implement and do a reconciliation and we're off by 37 cents, and somebody asks us to go figure out where the 37 cents are. And sometimes we say, hey, there's a $10,000 threshold on here, so it's under 10,000, then whatever. It sounds to me like that kind of explains a little bit about where the CFO's background, whether they came that accounting route or the finance route there.
Yep, exactly. That was exactly right.
So I understand that you guys have you're doing some webinars now, and just helping get companies more knowledge in terms of the role of the fractional CFO, maybe other types of trainings. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you have coming up, the types of trainings that are available to help these organizations?
Yeah, so we actually just had our very first one. It was a webinar about pricing, because that's something that comes up quite a bit for our clients, just figuring out where to find that sweet spot for their pricing and when to adjust and things like that. So we had our first one, which was a lot of fun. And then we have our next one coming up on June 25th at 1 o'clock. So I'll send the invitation. And that one, we haven't nailed it all the way down, but it's going to be something about managing finances when you have different economic pressures, like inflation or costs are going up, things like that. So it'll be something related to that.
Like when you buy gas one week and it's $20 per tank, and the next week it's $40.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but in
like
your
that.
business, right? Kind of like that. Like, it's funny because our daughter our 8-year-old was asking James, like, well, what happens? Something like, well, what happens when everything isn't going great in their business? And James was explaining how, part of his role is to shine light on things, even if it's not fantastic, and to bring it up consistently so that people can make good decisions, And so it's not always, roses and happiness in the meeting. Sometimes it's like he's the guy that says, hey, let's take a look at this. What are we going to do about this? And so, that's kind of how that came up. The reason for the topic is a lot of business owners are dealing with different things, and it's good to shine the light on it so they can make informed decisions.
Yeah, and I think that just highlights the importance of, having a strategy, being able to, James, to your point from before, do forecasts frequently, because it's easy to say our profit went up or it went down, right? And, and last month was better than this month or whatever. But if you're able to bring the explanations on why, gas doubled in price from last week to this week, that's why our costs are going up, versus just our expenses went up. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe we took on more vendors than we need, versus, there's a much different response to something like that versus, hey, our profitability was impacted because of something in our supply chain. Maybe we can go and, to your point, maybe there are things that we can renegotiate to help, get our profitability back to where it is. But, a lot of companies, they either don't do forecasts at all. They do them once every, 6 months, once a year. And that's just kind of what they go with. And, you're missing out a lot of opportunities, by waiting versus being able to say, all right, let's let's, put this down. Let's come up with a rationale and explanations, why. Maybe we don't need to chase the 37 cents, but, like we can look at, are there opportunities in the business strategically in order to go and, fix some of, the dip in revenue or the increase in expenses? Can we renegotiate some terms? Can we, renegotiate some costs out there? Can we defer certain projects that we're looking to do? The more information that you have up front, the better you can make those decisions. And for anybody that says, oh, hey, it's a lot of money to go and hire, whether it's a fractional CFO, an actual CFO, senior financial analyst, whatever it is, and you look at, well, what are some of these benefits that you can get out of having someone where it's not an extra expense you have to incur, but it actually saves you money to have the right person looking at this, someone that's done this for, however long, that, has experience in these areas that can, turn this into either a cost neutral or a cost savings by taking on this extra expense.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
So I know we're running out of time over here, but just any other bits of advice, words of wisdom that you can share with the audience before we wrap up here.
I'll go first, and then James, you can close, because I always think it's super helpful that I don't have a background in finance and I work in this company, because I think there's an element of, well, first, it's great to have a teaching background, because I'm always thinking about, whether the people that we're working with are actually hearing what we're saying and receiving, right? If I'm a teacher and I'm just going on and on about something and the people are not receiving it, that's not a good lesson, guys. And so I think part of, you asked about people who want to pursue like being a fractional CFO. I think part of it is really working on the communication and the human element of it. It's like, yes, there's the skill, like James brings, he has both. He's really good at both. But I see a lot of folks in finance who are very much just about the data. And so I think this is where partnership comes in and can be really helpful, but also just really taking the time to think about the human element of the work, right? Like that person that's worried about that 37 cents, maybe they need a phone call. And, I'm always thinking about how folks are receiving the information that we're giving them. And so I think that, we can be super data driven, and it's important, but also think about the communication part if you're going to pursue this type of role, and think about what makes you unique, because that's something that we get asked all the time. Well, there's a lot of fractional CFO companies. I'm like, they're not like us. We're different. James brings all of his experience that he has from his years working in finance in different positions. And I bring all of my experience working in education. And so because of that, the service that we provide is unique. And so I think, remember that there's always that human element that is a part of your work.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
I was giving you the final word. I was trying to be good this time.
I can't top that.
That's why, when you guys had reached out, I was like, I've got to have you both on this episode over here, which, this is a first for us of having, multiple guests, at the same time over here. But nice. I said, they both just bring so much to the episode, and want to remind our viewers there, if you like the content, make sure that you like and subscribe. Also, Paris and James, were viewers of the show that reached out that said, hey, we've got some great insight to bring to the show. Let's, can we talk about, being on the show? And, highly encourage anyone out there watching, if you have a, innovative idea, process, bit of technology, tips, whatever to share, feel free to reach out. We'd love to have you on the show as well. So I guess lastly, just closing out over here, it was great having you guys on. This is one of my favorite episodes over here. I can tell already. But just in terms of anyone that's looking to learn more, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So we are active on LinkedIn. Our company is Next Level Financial, and you can find us, Paris Williams or James Williams, on LinkedIn. And then I'll give you our website too. It's nextlevelfinancial.co.
Perfect. Highly encourage anybody looking for some extra help over there to reach out. Paris, James, was great having you guys on, and we'll have to have you guys on again to see what's been updated and what's changed since this episode over here.
Yes.
Thank you so much.